Angels waging war in the unseen realm. Global events fulfilling biblical prophecy. Eternal life. What lies beyond mortality? From analyzing the paranormal from a biblical worldview to the discussion of cutting-edge science and technology, conspiracy, discovery, special investigative reports. Unafraid to explore the challenging issues facing humanity. Welcome to another edition of Skywatch TV.
From the high plain of Peru to the halls of the Vatican, there is a mystery in the world, and apparently some very powerful forces that want to cover it up. Welcome to Skywatch TV. I'm Derek Gilbert. Our guest is a gentleman who has traveled around the world with a crew exploring these mysteries, and we will talk about that today. He is the director and expedition leader for a documentary series called True Legends. The first release in the series, the documentary film Technology of the Fallen. And it's our pleasure to welcome back to Skywatch TV, Timothy Alberino. Tim, it's good to see you again. Last time I was sitting here while you and Steve Quayle talked with Tom Horn, so now I get a chance to ask the questions. The first film, and I know you're hard at work on the second and third releases in the True Legends series, but to recap the first film, Technology of the Fallen, where did you go and what were you looking for?
Well, let me say first that the True Legends documentary series is based on Steve Quayle's book, True Legends. Steve Quayle wrote a book called True Legends that deals with all kinds of issues, from giants to UFOs to all kinds of anomalous sort of phenomenon. And also David Flynn's work. So we went to Peru and Bolivia for our first episode to go and film at some megalithic sites in both Peru and Bolivia, and to follow up on some investigative work that David Flynn had done before he passed away. So that's why we chose to go to Peru and Bolivia for episode 1. As you said, we're now in production of the next episode, episode 2. In episode 1, we went to the Altiplano, which is the second highest plain in the world, the second highest plateau in the world, second only to Tibet. That's where the famous Lake Titicaca is. And in fact, we went out on Lake Titicaca because there's a lot of legends surrounding Lake Titicaca, especially relating to UFOs and underwater cities. So we wanted to go out and talk to the native people, the Aymara people who live on the rafts, the river, the lake raft dwelling natives. And we talked to them about UFOs, and they told us some stories, some interesting stories that we record in the film. And then we went to an alleged Stargate, Aramumuru, did an investigation there. And we also went to Tiwanaku, to Pumapunku and Tiwanaku, and we visited that megalithic site, those megalithic ruins, and discovered some pretty astounding things.
These sites that you visited are typically sites that people will see programs about on cable channels, more often dedicated to advancing the ancient astronaut or ancient alien theory.
Yeah.
You know, why would a Christian production company, Gen 6 Productions, be investigating these sites?
Well, because the ancient astronaut theory is close but missing the mark. And really the origins, the explanation for the megaliths and for the technology the evidence of advanced technology in the prehistoric world has its roots in the Bible, in the text of Scripture, especially in the 6th chapter of Genesis. So one of the things that we discovered actually when we visited some of the same sites that they did in some of those programs that you mentioned. And it seems to us, it's very apparent to us that one very, very, not only one, but especially one very, very important piece of information was apparently intentionally omitted from these investigations that some of these other people have done, looking for evidence of aliens. And that piece of the puzzle that was purposely omitted is all the evidence, the overwhelming amount of evidence of a great flood that decimated the structures that once stood in these locations, and a race of giants that were said to have built them, or at least been involved in the building of these sites. So some of these people go looking for aliens and completely omit or reject what's actually there to be found, which is evidence of the great flood of Noah and of the Genesis 6 narrative, the Genesis 6 affair.
So we've heard that the flood myth is almost global, universal. So we're finding it in the high plain
Absolutely.
of Bolivia and Peru?
Absolutely. In episode 1, Technology of the Fallen, we document, we prove that the Inca, not only the Inca, but the Inca and the other natives that were part of their domain, believed, it was part of their mythos, that the world had been inundated in a flood, and that before that occurrence, there existed a race of giants. And that race of giants built the great megaliths throughout their empire that they found. The Inca did not build, for example, the walls of Sacsayhuaman, as is claimed by historians and archaeologists. They did not build Tiwanaku or whatever pre-Columbian race that the historians and archaeologists claim built Tiwanaku. It's simply based on fallacies. The truth is that what we're looking at when we talk about these megalithic sites is we are looking at the remains of a prehistoric, pre-flood world in which non-human entities were working with advanced technology.
What evidence did you see, or how did you fit the things that you saw into this pre-flood paradigm?
Well, let's deal with Tiwanaku specifically. In Tiwanaku, it's undeniable that the ruins at Tiwanaku, that whatever structures once stood there, were buried in a flood. That's almost universally accepted at this point.
Now, for the benefit of viewers, how high above sea level is Tiwanaku?
It's about 13,000 feet above sea level.
So this is not something on the shore where you can say, well, it was just a flood. This is
absolutely not. Yeah. This is inland in Peru, on the border of Peru and Bolivia. Tiwanaku's in Bolivia. It's on the border of Peru and Bolivia, close to Lake Titicaca, which is shared by both Bolivia and Peru. And the Altiplano, the whole Altiplano, it's an anomalous plateau.
2 miles up in the above sea level.
Many people have speculated, many historians have speculated, and archaeologists and geologists have speculated that at one time the Altiplano might have been at sea level. And we concur. We think that during the Great Flood, the great cataclysm known as the Flood of Noah, there was an upheaval of the entire Altiplano together, the whole plain. And we believe that Lake Titicaca is a remnant of the waters of the ocean. So at some point in time, it's pretty much indisputable that the ruins, the megalithic edifices that once stood were bowled over by tidal waves. And 10 feet, 6 to 10 feet of sediment was deposited over these ruins. And that's a fact. And within that sediment, of course, you find fossils and artifacts relating to the sea.
The construction itself, Pumapunku is one that I've seen some programs on. What is it about the construction itself that leads you to conclude that it could not have been the Inca or their ancestors?
Well, first of all, the Inca never claimed to have built any of the megaliths or even to have had records of their building. Now, the Inca did model their architecture after what they had discovered in the lands that they would eventually conquer. In other words, Ecuador, mainly Ecuador, Peru, and Bolivia, what we now know as Ecuador, Peru, and Bolivia. They called, by the way, the area around Cusco, they called that the land of the gods or the home of the gods, precisely because of what they discovered. Already there, what they discovered. And they deduced that this must be the home of the gods because of what the gods built, of what's left over from what the gods built here, meaning the megaliths, the ruins, which again they believe were pre-flood. But Tiwanaku specifically, the building of Tiwanaku is ingenious. the structures that once stood specifically in Pumapunku. Tiwanaku is the general area in Bolivia where all the ruins are.
Okay.
It's kind of confusing. The actual city, the town, is called Tiahuanaco. It's the Spanish version of the native word Tiwanaku. Tiwanaku is the native word for all of the ruins in that area.
Okay.
And specifically, Pumapunku refers to a very specific area, a very specific conglomerate of megaliths in that area.
Okay.
Pumapunku was built, was devised using interlocking, the building was devised using interlocking blocks. So the construction that they used was almost like, it was interlocking pieces. And they were, these pieces, these blocks have almost perfect, in some cases, absolutely perfect right angles. The blocks appear to have been vitrified on the surface. So these were smooth, glossy blocks. And if anybody knows anything about vitrification, it takes a lot of heat to vitrify andesite. And these pieces interlocked, they fit together like a jigsaw puzzle. They were built to resist seismic activity. And this is something that David Flynn covers in his book, Cydonia, which is included in the David Flynn collection. And it seems that whoever the builders were, again, very likely giants, but there were many different kinds of genetic variants from the human race in the pre-flood world based on the advent of Genesis 6. And whoever built these megaliths all over the world, not just in Peru, built them to withstand cataclysm. And even though that
Almost as though they knew that something was coming,
Precisely.
like a global flood that they needed to be prepared for.
as if they had advanced knowledge that a great cataclysm was about to occur. So they built these grand megalithic structures in the hopes to survive, to withstand the cataclysm, which apparently was a futile attempt, because even though these things were made to withstand cataclysm, they obviously could not withstand the wrath of God, which came upon the world as a result of the activities of the Watchers and of their offspring,
Right.
the builders of the megaliths themselves.
The Spanish basically conquered Central Latin America, South America.
That's right.
In the 16th century?
In the 15th and 16th century.
and 16th
yep.
century. What records did they leave behind of what they discovered and what they found from the native people as they came into contact with them?
You know, that's one of the most astounding things, and I think one of the, I would say one of the most important factors of episode 1, of our work that we did in episode 1, because we spoke with archaeologists, university level archaeologists, very well known archaeologists and historians, and we asked them, is there any evidence of giants in Peru and Ecuador and Bolivia? And their response was, yes, there is historical evidence of giants in the records, the historical records of Peru. There are not only are giants mentioned, but there are some very specific references to giants. And we were given a CD with some of the excerpts from the various archives from the chroniclers of Peru. And we're talking about the guys that wrote the history that the guys from whom we derive the history of the conquest of Peru and of the Inca, guys like Bernabe Cobo and Antonio de la Calancha, and very well-known historians who not only mentioned in passing that the Inca had myths about giants, or the mythos of the natives, but describe in great detail the actual bodies, mummified bodies and bones of the giants that were discovered by the conquistadors and by the chroniclers and priests that came to the New World, specifically to Peru, to the conquered lands of the Inca.
So the chroniclers, were they just soldiers with the armies of the conquistadors?
Yes.
Or were they Jesuits who were sent by the Vatican to help evangelize?
In the case of the conquest of the Inca Empire, it was Francisco Pizarro and his 72 to 100 conquistadors. About 172 to 200 conquistadors who came and conquered the Inca, and with them were chroniclers, because Most of these guys didn't even know how to write. They were illiterate. But the chroniclers that came with them were in most cases priests, because the priests were the educated class of society. And so they came over. They were Spanish priests working for the Church of Rome, and they chronicled the conquest of the Inca and the wars, and also afterwards, after the Inca were conquered, then came the conversion of the natives. So first, of course, they were conquered by the soldiers of Rome, the conquistadors. They referred to themselves as the soldiers of the cross and of Rome and of the faith. And then came those who would convert the native populace, the priests, and with them the Inquisition, the Spanish Inquisition, the worst branch of the Inquisition. And of course, with the priests came over the various orders, such as the Dominicans, the Jesuits, and so forth. And they began to extirpate idolatry in Peru. They began a campaign of extirpation, in other words, extermination of idolatry in Peru. And so they would go around and burn the idols and forcibly convert the pagans to Christianity on pain of death. And in some of these instances, they discovered, astoundingly, and it is written in detail in the records, they discovered that in some cases, at least in one occasion specifically, the natives had enshrined the bodies of giants with what appeared to have had elongated skulls. They enshrined their bodies in a cave, and they were worshiping them as gods, but also as the progenitors of their people.
Really?
And this is described in detail. And the priests and the royal inspectors that accompanied the priests, which were from the Kingdom of Spain, accompanying the priests who were, of course, subservient to Rome, going through the lands, recording the extirpation of idolatry, also recorded this discovery and recorded the fact that they took the bodies out of the cave, the bodies of the giants, and they burned them. And in many cases, the bodies of the giants were confiscated. The bones and the bodies were confiscated, and the records show that they ended up in Lima, the capital of Peru, and also in the office of the Inquisition.
In Peru?
In Peru.
Where are they today?
Well, one could extrapolate that it's possible and in fact probable that many of those artifacts made their way to Rome. And in fact, we know that many of those artifacts made their way to Rome for other reasons in upcoming episodes, further investigations. And in fact, episode 2, we go to Rome because we're asking the question, what is the Vatican's knowledge of these affairs? Because obviously the Church of Rome, these were the chroniclers. These were the educated. It was the priests of Rome.
Right.
It was the chroniclers and the priests of Rome that were writing the histories in those times. And so surely the Vatican knows about giants, aside from the fact that the Vatican, especially the Jesuits, have the most prolific intelligence agency on the face of the planet. And penetrating intelligence network on the face of the planet.
Well, yeah, eyes in every parish almost.
Absolutely, and in every continent, and even in the most remote places, you'll find Catholic churches, oftentimes constructed right on top of underground complexes, ancient underground complexes, or megalithic ruins, or in the vicinity, and that's part of episode 2.
So the theory then is that for some reason, other than just trying to eliminate pagan worship of these old bones, that the Vatican has another agenda at work.
Control and confiscation. So in episode 2, we deal with that issue. So if, for example, let's say in Cusco, Peru, there's an excavation happening by some Jesuit priests, and this is based on a true information, not in Cusco exactly. Actually, yes, in Cusco, but in other places we documented in episode 2 the fact that the Jesuits specifically would be excavating in a certain area, especially if there's megaliths, and they would discover something. They would make a discovery. And then suddenly, a Catholic church would be erected right on top of the excavation site. So what that does is it provides cover. Those priests can continue to excavate in secret and extract whatever treasures or mysteries or artifacts are located underneath the ground, under the church. And this isn't just some kind of conspiracy theory. This is fact. There are many churches around the world that are built directly on top of ancient ruins and were placed directly on top of excavation sites. And there's a number of reasons for that. On a very basic level, it's a show of dominance. Christianity has conquered the pagans. You know, if there was a pagan temple there for example, the conquistadors went into Peru, went into Cusco, conquered the Inca, took over the capital city of the Inca, which was Cusco, knocked down their pagan temples and erected cathedrals right on top as a show of dominance. Christianity has conquered the pagans. But that's only one aspect of why that was done. The other aspect is what I just said. All the while they were excavating, extracting the gold, the bones, the artifacts, relating not just to the Inca, but to the pre-flood world. Knowledge is power. Knowledge is power. And there's no other organization on the face of the planet that has more knowledge about the true history of this planet than Rome, than the Vatican.
That is something that I've always found curious, is that the Roman Catholic Church, which is the largest ostensibly Christian denomination in the world, has scholars who are devoted to studying astronomy, archaeology, paleontology, things that don't, on the surface, have anything to do with preaching the gospel and making disciples of all nations. Is it knowledge for its own sake, or what is the end game, do you think?
Steve Quayle has a popular saying, those who control the past determine the future. Now, the greatest cover-up in history is the cover-up of history. So the prehistory of this planet, we've been lied to about it. Obviously, you and I know that the theory of evolution, the evolution of species and Darwinism is a fabrication. It's a complete fabrication and false. So what is the true prehistory of this planet? There is a history, obviously. There's a truth concerning the prehistory of this planet. The truth is, it's far more astounding, remarkable, and unbelievable than anybody could ever conceive of. It's a science fiction story it's a science faction story. I mean, it's truth, it's fact based on what you might think of as fiction. Giants and hybrids and the gods descending from heaven in the form of the fallen angels and teaching men forbidden knowledge. And we're talking about high technology in the prehistoric past. That is the truth that the priests of power, the controllers of this world order, have worked hard and are working hard to conceal from the public, because for many reasons, there are many reasons why they would do it, but on a very basic level, there's a lie that's coming. And that lie, for it to take root and to be successful, in order for that lie to succeed, the truth of the past must be obscured. Because if the truth of the past was known, the lie would not succeed.
That's true. If you were able to debunk it based on evidence that was available to us,
absolutely,
then certainly, that would be more difficult
to
sell the lie.
One of the reasons why there would be a cover-up. One of the reasons. But let's talk about perhaps the most practical reason of why there would be a cover-up, which we discovered in Sardinia. That's episode 3 in our documentary series, upcoming.
Well, we've only got a few minutes left, so maybe we should leave that as a tease.
We will.
Because we definitely have you back when those episodes are ready. I do want, for people who aren't familiar with David Flynn, because David is not a mainstream Christian theologian, and sadly, the Lord called him home at an early age.
2012, I believe, right?
What is it about David Flynn's work, with just a couple of minutes to go here, that informed the research that you and Steve Quayle did for the True Legend series? David
Flynn's work is some of the most profound work I've ever read, his research. Of course, in this collection here that was published by Tom Horn and Steve Quayle working together to put this together, Cydonia and Temple at the Center of Time, the two of his two bestsellers. David Flynn, especially in the book Cydonia, he goes into the mythos of all kinds of ancient civilizations, especially the Greeks, the Romans, and he demonstrates, and the Phoenicians, and he demonstrates why the prehistoric past, based on the whole Genesis 6 narrative and even some of the pre-Adamic stuff, is so important to understand if you're going to talk about the prophetic future. And his work is second to none in that arena. And again, obviously Steve Quayle has written many books, and the True Legends series and his Genesis 6 giants, and then you combine that with the work of David Flynn. That's really what we're pursuing, and that's the heart of what we're doing, is to show people that, look, if you want to understand the prophetic future, you've got to understand the prehistoric past, because the whole thing is going full circle.
So the first episode, Technology of the Fallen, examines the megalithic structures and the means to construct them.
Yep, and it's an introduction to us, to Steve Quayle, to myself, to our work, to what we're doing, and to why we're doing it.
Okay, and episodes 2 and 3 then are going to examine more than of the reason that this evidence was been obscured.
Yep, the conspiracy, the cover-up, but not only that, and let me say in the final moments, that we have testimony in both episode 2 and in episode 3, upcoming episode 2, which is in production now, and then the episode following, episode 3. We have testimony of people who have seen the bones of giants, many testimonies, and have dug them up themselves, were employed by the government to dig them up. We're talking 12 to 20 foot tall giants. And even testimony from somebody who was involved with the body of a recently deceased giant that had been killed by the United States military.
By the U.S. military.
And that's all I can say about that for now, but that's in episode 2.
Coming up on future episodes of True Legends, the series, and we'd like to offer the first episode to you, True Legends, Technology of the Fallen, with the David Flynn collection. And this is a two-handed book because it includes Sidonia, The Secret Chronicles of Mars, and Temple at the Center of Time, two groundbreaking works by David Flynn, who was truly an out-of-the-box thinker. Together, these would normally sell for $60. We'll offer them to you through the Skywatch TV store for $39.95 plus shipping and handling. You'll find the deal online at the Skywatch TV store. That's online, skywatchtvstore.com. Just half a minute left, Tim. What do you hope people take away from viewing Technology of the Fallen?
I hope that people will understand that the Genesis 6 narrative is absolutely key to Bible prophecy. That's really what we hope that people come away with, and that they begin to prepare themselves for the lie that's coming, because it's going to be based on that event.
There were giants in the earth in those days. Well, fascinating stuff. More to come. Thank you for watching as we keep watch. I'm Derek Gilbert, and this is Skywatch TV.